that you could hear me. So let's get started. Let's do a quick introductions. If we haven't met yet, my name is Holly. It's kind of weird looking at the webcam and not on my monitor. Sorry. I'm Holly. I come from a recruiting, leadership, and training background for about 2 decades now. I'm also an ex-Amazonian, Google, Facebook, and work for a couple startup in my career. So I know what it takes to be prepared, not just for your interview with employers, but how to really define your vision and helping you gain the confidence, highlighting your achievement or your superpower into finding happiness in the work that you were meant to be in. I know that a number of you have reached out to me on via LinkedIn because that is really my entire network of technical professionals as well as recruiters. Oops, the mic just dropped. So rather than answering everyone's questions, I finally got smart and started this thing called Live. So I picked out 10 of the top questions that I've been asked in the last couple of weeks. So providing answer to you. And for those of you who will be joining later on or so, just leave me a comment. Even after the live video, I will post this in the next hour or so, and leave your comment and I will get back to you. Okay, so let's get started. Let me pull up here. Okay, try to make this a little smaller. I feel like I need some music in here. There you go. Okay. Oh, I saw a shadow behind me. That was a little spooky. But the lighting in here is not that great because I usually use my little studio for my YouTube filming, and I'm not really sure how to use this brand new webcam for this purpose. Okay, so bear with me here. So let's start by question number 1. Tell me about a time when you were in direct conflict with a peer and how was it resolved? Now, keep in mind that these top 10 questions were ones that have been asked basically a number of multiple people. If I'm not looking at you because I'm looking at my screen. So for behavioral questions, let's backtrack for a second there. What the employer wanting to know is how you tackle problems. What is your persuasive or negotiation style in situation where you don't agree? So with that in mind, as we're going through these 10 questions, you'll have a better idea of why I am producing the answer that I do. Okay, so in this specific case, think about a situation. I always like to think of larger scale, higher level that is relevant to the company that you're interviewing for. For instance, if you are interviewing for companies like Google or the Amazon in the world, you wanted to provide large scale and large scope example. And in this case, it would be something along the line of, in one of my former employers, I was asked to build a machine learning and computer science team from scratch. Not a lot of the decision made sense to me when it comes to scaling out our recruiting team, because based on my entire experience in technology recruiting, I have seen success and I know what it takes to hire the right individual coming from similar background or having the experience to really dive deep into hunting for those special talents. I felt that at the time, the directions of where my team would be sit, it's a little bit different from what the scope is. So I disagree with the strategies within the recruiting team. And how I came out of that was to really put a proposal together, set that peer or sets of peer aside and explain to them what success really meant with similar technologies in the past, and comparing one of the other billion-dollar company so they can see it as an example. And also trying to introduce event recruiting, which didn't work out because this specific company that I worked for have never done anything like that before. So with a grain of salt, I was able able to at least convince to allow me to build the team that I want, which is I need to hire 12 people to be based in Seattle versus, I really don't have anyone. I believe I started having a team of 2 people. Okay. So really highlighting what is the scope, what action does it take for me to get there, and what was the end result that I wanted to deliver for my customers, or in this case, the hiring managers. Okay. On question number 2, tell me about a time when you were winning and your team was losing. This is actually from one of my buddy on LinkedIn yesterday. How did you remedy the situations? I provided a example on people manager, and I will briefly talk about an IC. As a people managers, I have one belief, and that is you will never be successful as a leader unless your team is winning alongside with you. We will not be doing our job if we're not the first to know when things are not going well. Also, you guys, if your people manager, should check out Why Could Employees Leave. I actually have a couple great tips in there to help leaders build better rapport and relationship with their team. Okay, on an IC perspective, the employer is really asking if you're doing well. Let's just say, I'm a recruiter and I hit my target, but my peers within the same team are failing. What would I do? Well, in this scenario, it is very, very common with big companies where you are better, your productivity can bypass your peers. So what I would recommend for you to do is see it as a side project. If you see someone falling behind, don't wait until they're not doing well or you're hearing it directly from them or from your manager. Reach out and help them. Share your best practices, because when you do that, people will give back tenfold. And I would find a common denominator to help collaborate and bring your win with your peers. And in return, I think you may be able to learn something different from them as well. Okay. And of course, you would have to dive deep with a more specific answer. But in this live specifically, unless you guys jump on and ask probing questions, I have 8 more. I wanted to get through them really quickly. Okay. Number 3, Holly, I don't understand why the brand name companies are not reaching out to me. Well, this is actually from an executive. When brand name company, meaning like the Google and Amazon in the world, are not reaching out to you, because it has a lot to do with your credential on your LinkedIn profile. I preach a lot about the power of LinkedIn over resume, because I'm only saying this as personal example as well. Employers, let's just talk about recruiters. Recruiters generate a pipeline of passive candidate, and where do they source? LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number 1 platform. It's not even the largest, but it is the platform to go to. So unless your background highlights are some of the buzzwords coming from your employer of choice, the recruiters are not going to call you for a role or level that you should be in. Okay. I also have those videos on my LinkedIn playlist, so make sure you check that out. Another big tip with reaching out to your employer is there's some networking strategies I can help you tackle around that as well. And again, it's in that LinkedIn video. Okay. Number 4, I'm having trouble with storytelling around my achievement, and I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand why I was not able to get into companies like Microsoft and Amazon. That's really true. For those who have followed me for the last 2 months, I talked a lot about the STAR methods. I've actually learned that from being at Amazon as a facilitator for making great hiring decisions. When you use the STAR method, you're really carving out and creating the storytelling present. You're really drafting out the situation for the audience, and that's allowing you to take a step back and pick up 3 of your most valuable high-level examples to share. And I am a true believer that once you're able to do that, you can relate the same principle to every single job interviews and every single employer. You should be able to leave a pretty positive impression. Okay, that will be storytelling using the STAR methods technique. Okay, question number 5. What are your weaknesses? Well, what are your weaknesses? I'm sorry, I had to laugh. I actually had a conversation with with an individual previously, where the first thing they told me was an example for from their personal life. So you have to understand, and maybe I should brought this up from the very beginning. With every questions and how you answer it, make sure you keep it utmost work related and leave everything personal out. Okay. So your weaknesses could be, in my case, my ultimate weakness is it's probably diving too deep. At least that's the number one thing that I've heard over and over again from my boss, right? Let me give you an example. When I was in charge of expanding the Amazon B2B team and basically growing it internationally, at the time I had no clue what I was doing. I did the best that I could, knock on wood, it turned out great. But I've hired a team from scratch in Austin and placed about 25 engineers there at one point. And when those individuals start, my hiring managers will reach out to me, and these are senior level engineering leaders, and they will say, "Hey, I have John Doe starting, and I don't know what to do." As a recruiter or a lead at the time, it's not my job, and I understood the feedback very well. It's not my job to help them fill out the I-9 and make sure that they show up to work on the first day with their passport. And you got the idea, felt the I-9 and W-2 phone. But I took a step forward in diving deep because those were my candidates. Those were my hired. Myself and my team at the time, we source our tell off to find those talents. I've flown out to Austin I would say every 2, 3 weeks, and make couple hires out of those time through event recruiting. So you better bet with their onboarding process have to be positive with no HR personnel in the Austin office at the time. Okay, so my weakness is that when I see an opportunity and I see a way for me to add value, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take a step back and drink my coffee while my candidate or my job needs me. Okay. All right. Number 6. Tell me about time when you make a mistake and how did you approach it? Hmm. Let's see here. Um, I am going to take you guys back into um, my Kindle stage. This is about what, 7, 8 years ago when I started really diving deep into the hardware space as a recruiter at the time. I didn't I didn't know what high speed board design was or anything high speed. I just know that everything is high level and large scale. In the beginning, I made a mistake of of contacting embedded software engineer versus hardware hardware engineer. It was embarrassing because when I got on the phone with a couple candidates, they basically told me that I didn't know what I was doing. So I learned it the hard way. But what I've learned is from that day on, I told myself that I will work harder into really understanding versus reading. Doing wiki didn't help me at the time. I would go to one of my top engineers, tell them to give me a tour at the lab, tear the Kindle devices apart, and point to me, what do they mean by high-speed board design? And what is high-speed RAM? So walk me through all of that and explain to me why someone is so excited as a hardware engineer to be in this team when we're competing with Apple, right? And it worked. I was able to meet my goal and build that team out. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, number 7. Tell me about a time when you or your boss made an unpopular decision. I actually took this question from one of my networking friends on LinkedIn, and I found something similar on Google. So I wanted to add a little twist in this question. Okay, so tell me a time when you or your boss made an unpopular decision that had to be executed by your team? Well, I think this is like day in the life of a recruiter in recruiting, where we always have to make decisions that we don't agree on. Well, it sounds like all my experience are coming from Amazon, and I guess that's also because it's fairly fresh. The last time I was there was about 2 years ago. Um, it was um, my Alexa experience most recently, Amazon Alexa, where when I was hired, and which is why I'm a big fan of Amazon, because my scope and my goal triples or quadrupled by the week. When I was hired, I believe my team was supposed to fill about 60 to 65 position a year to about 400. And this is literally a 1 month gap. Okay. Um, I I knew it needed to be done, but I don't see how it needed to be done, even if I were to go and build a recruiting team again from scratch, or try to move my strategies around. It takes a solid 3 months to build a strong pipeline or foundation, um, to see the funnel start moving from phone screen to on-site at the time. So what I did is I did what is called disagree and commit, but really understanding the bottom line of the growth, where the direction of the business was going. Worked my tail off, did the best that I could to inspire and motivate my team. Hire a couple contractors underneath. Use a couple third-party vendor and get as much traction as we could. Um, in the end, we almost hit our number. We came really close, but a lot of it is also utilizing our internal referral system. So that would be my story. And this is a similar story for, I want to say, every single company I've ever been in and every single team, where when something is presented to you from the role, it's completely different once you're in, especially when you choose to work for a fast, most innovative company in the world like an Amazon. Okay. You just have to tough it up, roll your sleeve up, and do whatever you can, to make sure that you deliver. And there should also be peers who's been there longer than you that can help you along the way. Okay. Number 8. I have interviewed at Amazon several times, and it wasn't a success. I find the behavioral questions to be hard. How can I better prepare? You know what, guys? I get this is like the number one asked questions with Amazon. And hang on one second before I start. Let's see. I think I need a Jesus moment here. I have jumped on the phone with so many of my friends. I mean, friends I actually hang out with, and friends I've actually been to house party with. And I know their family and their kids. And I've also had the same conversation with acquaintances on LinkedIn as well. Guys, all of this questions that you've asked me, you can find everything on google.com. In fact, I did a video last Tuesday. And if you haven't seen it, please go see it. Is interview questions with Amazon, right? If you go and you put leadership principle, it shows up. There's 14 leadership principle. There's also several links. If you click on each leadership principle, it gives you examples of questions. You can literally find anything you want. I have also done a tutorial on Glassdoor using a TPM, or Technical Program Manager, as an example in my most recent video. You can actually see real live questions from previous candidates who wanted to share and help others get jobs at Amazon. Okay. So I guess why I still am kind of disappointed and frustrated, because a lot of the questions are being asked are there. And what I'm experiencing is that a lot of job seekers are looking for ways to get past the interviewed, but I would really love to see you guys put in the work and actually do the research. Let me give you guys an example. Doing these videos, I love it. This is what I love to do. This is why I took off my corporate hat, make great money, so that I can do this for you guys, that I could cut it off when I want to and spend time with my 2-year-old son. And I've worked really long and hard myself to create these videos and be prepared for you guys. And I wanted to continue doing that. But when I do show content, I wanted to ask you all to please take a moment, and my videos are no longer than maybe 3 to 5 minutes max, if even that. Okay. Just to help you out, there's a lot of reading materials out there. I'm going to link, there's his former ex-Googler and ex-Facebook. He called himself the tech lead. And if you're a technical professional, specifically software engineers, he actually has online courses to help you ace the technical interview with, like the Amazon, the Google, the Facebook in the world. I'll put all of that in this video's link in the next hour. So like I said, I love being a great resource to help you guys. And I know that with some folks up to up to executive level, I am doing one-on-one coaching with you right now. And I do have an 8 weeks career accelerator class for this reason to walk you through. Now, many of you have asked me to look at your LinkedIn profile, give you some quick feedback on your resume. But keep in mind, your resume and your LinkedIn profile can only go so far, but you need to be able to master in telling about yourself and your story. Okay. Which is why on the next topic here, right before I get back to the last 3-4 questions, you have to be very mindful of where is your current pain point and what is it that your goals are. What is your goal? What do you want? Are you looking for another job? Are you looking for a lateral move? What is it? And start planning by writing it down. Think back of the company that you've applied for and why didn't you get the job and what could you do better? And if you need help with that, reach out to me, and I'll love to see if you and I are a good fit with each other and see how I can assist you in that area. Okay. So next questions. I have interviewed for, this is interesting. I've interviewed for internal positions and failed 2 times. I don't understand why. Well, internal positions, for those who are not aware of it, this individual, what they meant was they apply for same position title, but with different product line within a large organization, and seems to have trouble leaving the current environment. It could be a couple of things, right? Right off the bat, you have to look at, just because it's the same position title, what was the level? Maybe the scope is a little bit different based on the age of the product or services, or maybe the launch date, the requirement for this position that you wanted to transfer into is a bit different from yours. And maybe the technical aspect of the requirement for the new position is different from what you're doing. I would encourage you, and I wish you were alive right now so that I could jump on and dive deeper into, why didn't you get a position as an internal transfer candidate? That's what it's called. Okay, I would dive really deep, and as a pro tip, and as someone who have done a countless number of internal transfer, one of the things that I would encourage for you to do is to reach out to the hiring manager. Get to learn more about the role. Don't even look at job descriptions because you're already there with the company. Talk to the managers, talk to like 1 or 2 folks in the team who are at your level doing similar things, and see if there are any technical skill or soft skill, any skill that you're lacking, and tell yourself if this is the right fit for you. One thing to be aware of is don't just transfer or apply to a job just because the product is really cool or something's really sexy, but you have to really underline, do I have this background? How do I make myself stand out? If I don't meet the requirement at 100%, which no one does, right? How can I meet the requirement at 80%? And what can I say to prepare myself for an interview where the employer will give me the opportunity to prove myself? Okay, I hope that answers your question. Okay, tell me about a time when you were in direct conflict with a peer. Oh, sorry. That's actually question number 1. It's for different people. Okay, this one is a little bit different. Tell me about a time when you were in a conflict with a peer and your manager doesn't have your back. You can tell I copy and paste and direct the questions in my my shared doc, and I actually didn't have any time to scan through them. When you're in a situation, the whole purpose of this is trying to see how you tackle problems that you don't agree with. And this is where your communication and your persuasion skill comes up. Okay. Um, Let me give you an example. I think this is in practically every single one of my career, I've encountered something like this, but let me give you a fun example here. Um, let's see. Let's use one of my while I don't like using, I don't really, I'm trying to stay away from using employer name to be respectful to the employer. But I went through a number of reorg, let's just say a number of reorg, and I had a project handed to me. Well, that's very common actually in the tech industry. This is not just recruiting, which is great. I love changes. I'm very adaptable to changes. In fact, um, I think being able to scale quickly is one of my strengths. But to take on a new client on top of taking on 9 other client behind the scene, I knew right off the bat it was very scattered for me, and I didn't know how to troubleshoot around it, if I may be vulnerable here. And having to educate my peer and my manager at the time didn't really work out for me, because when you're having conversation with other professionals, it's not a bad thing. It's just that sometimes people don't have the experience as you do, and they haven't seen what has worked and what hasn't worked at what caliber, right? In this case, I was, initially I was asked to really focusing in this large project because I was based in Seattle and not be all over the geography with so many different skill set, because I know that my largest client who's housing in Seattle would suffer. But in the end, in theory, no one really want to handle the other projects because they were confidential technical skills with machine learning and computer visions. And my heart was really into the special projects focusing on OS, which is operating systems, right? So with that said, I know that one or the other is going to suffer. And at that point, I felt like I was kind of stuck in between. So what I've done is I took a really big risk. I took a big risk into convincing my boss and everyone else around me that I'm not crazy. I need to hire a group of people quick and fast, and I need to distribute their skill set. I don't care if they don't have a whole lot of experience, because I can train individual to be top performers as long as they have the right attitude and they want to be here and they want to learn. And that had worked. So long story short, my team, I mean, those junior folks actually hit up to 150% to gold. I was super impressed. Now, I have to admit, I did not do all the work. It was really a team effort. So to piggyback on question number 2 on tell me about a time when you were winning and your team was losing, basically, well, how did you remedy the situation? Well, that's why, because you are really no good unless your team is performing. You should be able as a leader to do whatever you can to be there for your staff. When they are struggling, you should feel their pain. You should show them that you're sitting right next to them, literally, and go through the same situation so that you can earn trust with them. So if anything were to fall apart, you'd be the first one to know, not your upper leader, not the clients or no one else. And that's really how you gain trust with your staff as a people manager. Okay. Last question that I actually drag these questions out from the clients that I'm working with right now. Um, the first thing that I made everyone do is to spend some time and crop out a really compelling story of just tell me about yourself, right? So I find a lot of professionals struggling with that because they have done so much. When you've done so much in your career, it is very difficult to carve out just 3 things, 3 different examples, detailed yet concise example to walk the interviewer through. And the hardest part is paint them a very clear picture where they get it, right? Again, unless, also keep in mind that communicating during an interview process is really important. So When you're interviewing with the interviewer, it's nice to know a little bit about them, even if the recruiters who are prepping you for the onsite did not include their role or position title, anything like that. Oftentimes it's just their first name. That's fine. But in the very beginning of the interview, this is a bonus tip for all of you guys that's watching right now. Ask them, what do you do for this ABC organization, right? So that way you know how to cater your answer towards the right audience. Because oftentimes I find that my interviewers have not been through what I've been through in my career, and I'm not saying this to be overconfident or anything. I'm just being a realist here, where we're not seeing eye to eye. And that's also for you to kind of pause and think of, is this the right environment for me? Is this the right scope for me? And is this where I want to be? So keep in mind, professional, you're not there for just an interview. You're also interviewing them. And it's okay to ask them really smart questions to show them that you're also interviewing them. Okay? Leave me a comment below and let me know which one of these questions that you want me to elaborate more. I just don't want to spend a whole hour on these questions. I wanted to open the dialogue up here, and this is really my first actual live. Sorry about the light, the shadow in the back. Looks like it's actually really freaky. Looks like I have a twin back there, but I don't. I really enjoy this. So I will continue to gather questions from you all. I know that a couple of you are not comfortable putting your question out. I get it. LinkedIn is a beast. You don't want your colleagues and coworker to know that you have questions, but hey, we're all human. I mean, listen, for those who have followed me, 90% of Americans are comfortable at their job, even though they are miserable. Okay, you're that 10% that you're actually doing your research and your homework. I'm sure I'm not the only person that you follow. That's like kudos to you guys. Okay, so continue doing that. Let me know how I can continue to motivate and inspire you guys. The world is our limit, and there's plenty of opportunities out there for all of you. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.